The Institute for Priestly Formation, located in Omaha, Nebraska, in partnership with Spirit Catholic Radio, is pleased to present the Lenten Reflection Series, The Journey to Jerusalem. Join Father Mark Toups as he helps us walk with Jesus on his journey to Jerusalem.
Wednesday of the third week of Lent.
Our brothers and sisters, welcome back to the Journey to Jerusalem, and welcome back to the 7th chapter of the Gospel of Luke, where in Luke 7:48 today we hear that your sins are forgiven. Let's go back to what that image would have looked like in the home of the Pharisee and this woman who's a sinner who is contrite. He says to her, your sins are forgiven. Now with that, you could have probably heard the exhale of innumerable sleepless nights driven by condemnation and darkness. When he said those words, wow, what did she feel? Jesus, sent to rescue us from our enslavement to sin, eyes the woman with compassion and says, your sins are forgiven. And if she was crying before, you can imagine that her tears only continue. However, the riverbanks shift from shame to gratitude. Her tears shift from condemnation to thanksgiving. She's been rescued from her former enslavement to her quote-unquote many sins. She has been set free. She is forgiven. She's been rescued. And all she had to do was ask. Blessed John Paul II once wrote, without forgiveness, one remains a prisoner to one's past, end quote. Without forgiveness, we remain a prisoner to our past. This rescued woman of Luke chapter 7 has been liberated from her inner cell of isolation because she asked Jesus for forgiveness. And with no hesitation, with no judgment, Jesus extended to her the liberation she so desired. And all she had to do was ask. Now let's be honest. Contrition, confession, and forgiveness strike at the core of who we are. There's a certain vulnerability required for forgiveness. There's a vulnerability in the asking. Imagine the piercing vulnerability of the woman as she wept at Jesus' feet. A vulnerability so penetrating that she stood behind his feet in Luke 7:38. She was ashamed, so she hid behind him. She wanted to ask, but she felt vulnerable in doing so. During his post-resurrection teaching, Jesus reminded his apostles in Matthew 28:18 that all power in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Knowing the importance of asking and knowing the importance of the encounter, Jesus equipped his apostles with the very same power. In John 20:21, he says, as the Father has sent me, so I send you. So Jesus has all the power. He was sent with all the power. And he says, as the Father sent me, so I now send my apostles. Thus the apostles are entrusted with the ministry of reconciliation. That's in 2 Corinthians 5:19. And St. Paul's talking about that reconciliation is a ministry. Jesus himself asked that we ask for forgiveness from him and through the priesthood that he established. Many may ask whether or not we have to go to a priest for forgiveness. A good Bible study says yes, rather clearly. In fact, good church history does the same. Sacramental confession was never questioned for the first 1,500 years of Christianity. Now let's be honest, the real reason most of us don't go to confession to a priest is because we feel vulnerable. Asking God in the privacy of our own thoughts is one thing, but having to face a priest is something entirely different in our interior experience. And perhaps that's why the woman of Luke 7 stood behind his feet. Asking is one thing, but asking the way Jesus himself commanded is another. My friends, without forgiveness, one remains a prisoner to his past, to her past. And it's time to be rescued. It's time for the encounter. It's time to rest. I want you to ask Jesus today if it's time to see a Catholic priest and confess your sins in confession and the reconciliation, the sacrament. Freedom awaits you. Your flat tires can be restored. And all you have to do is ask. You've been waiting for a sign of whether it was time to, quote unquote, get your life right, or you've been waiting for a sign from God of whether it was time to go see a priest. Well, this is your sign. I love you too much as a spiritual father to let you stay trapped in your past and stay trapped in your sin. Freedom awaits. All you have to do is ask. My brothers and sisters, I'll be praying for you as you continue to pray whether now is the time to go to confession. And until then, may God bless you.
To listen to today's reflection again, or to order a copy of the Journey to Jerusalem booklet with the daily readings, the website is www.priestlyformation.org. Join Father Mark Toups during this Lenten season as he helps us walk with Jesus on his journey to Jerusalem.